Good morning, friends. Today is a little bit of a different video. Today I won't be talking about politics and about ground invasions. Today I want to talk to you about what it's like to be a mother in the Middle East in this season. So grab a cup of coffee and join me in this conversation. So last week I went to the Makoulet. Now you may be wondering, what's a Makoulet? The Makoulet is the little camping store that's here in our town. We live in a town of about 2,000 people, and so we need a little grocery store. And so I bumped into an Orthodox man there, and he said, Baruch Hashem. He said, blessed be the Lord. And I responded to him with Baruch Hashem, which most people don't because they're not believers. He started to explain to me, most people are upset at us as Orthodox Jews that we don't fight, because most of them, they don't fight in the IDF. He said, but you should know that we do pray. And I was touched by him, and he pulled out his phone and he started showing me that many of his friends and his congregation that had gone south to Gaza to bless the soldiers there and to encourage them in God. He's not the only one. I've heard many reports of Orthodox Jewish people of the towns around us that have gone to the north and to the south with their food trucks, and they are cooking up a storm for these soldiers. But also I've noticed that in this season of war that there are many more Orthodox men that are signing up to be active troops. Just last week there was a report that 2,000 Orthodox Jews were signing up and were starting their training as reservists in the army. So the first 2 weeks of the war, the kids did not go to school. Everything was closed in the whole country. But here in this last week, they have started to open the schools slowly. This was a big concern, not just for us as parents, but for every parent in the nation. Because the initial attack from Hamas was targeting children so much. And as you may have noticed, there's still many children kidnapped by Hamas in Gaza. So you may understand the concern that we had sending our kids back to school, and every parent had that. So what they did is every father that had been a reservist or was carrying a gun, they decided to become security guards in the school. So when the schools opened, the military was at Noah's school, even at the daycare of Ezra. They had security guards in front, they had security guards inside, and most of them were just fathers and mothers from this town that had been soldiers before or that had now signed up to be voluntary reservist again. Our middle child, Josiah, there was a concern about him because their school didn't have a bomb shelter. And so they had to look for a different building inside our town where he could go to school. And they finally found one that did have a bomb shelter, because without it, it's not safe for the kids to go to school. That first day of dropping them off, I was relieved that they finally could go to school because they were so excited. And it's very hard to entertain them in the midst of our own stress and our own worries. But at the same time, my mother's heart was just pounding, because what if a rocket comes through? What if they're not fast enough? What if there is a terrorist infiltration? I can't protect them, but I've seen that it's so good for them to be back in school, and it's brought them so much joy. As a mom, my emotions vary from moment to moment. One moment I feel strong, and at the essence of it all, I feel God's protection, and I truly do not fear for our lives. But other moments, I do worry. I worry about what's going to happen. I worry about tomorrow. I worry about escalations. Other moments, I deal with fear. I deal with fear when I hear certain noises. I deal with fear when certain news comes in. Then I read this scripture the other day. In Psalm 139, it says, how precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I could count them, they would be more in number than the sand. And when I awake, I'm still with you. And then it goes to verse 19. And I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know if you read the Bible like this, but I just imagine David got a phone call, or some rocket came through and flew into Israel like we're dealing with right now, maybe an arrow. He hangs up the phone call and he continues writing, because the tone quite changes. And he goes, oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, you bloodthirsty men. And he keeps going. And then in verse 23, he gets himself a cup of coffee. He takes a deep breath. And then in verse 23, he goes, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, and see if there's any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." I read this and I realized, I'm not the only one. David was a king, David was a psalmist, and David was a warrior. David was a soldier. He was dealing with the same things that we're dealing with right now. But in the midst of war and in the midst of even the outrage that we feel towards the enemy, even in this season, there's also room for that deep intimacy of knowing God and the fact that He washes over me with His love, that He knows me at my core, that He knows you at your core, and that in the midst of that, He loves us with an everlasting love. And that is the truth. Do I fear for my life? No, because He is our protector. He is our defender. He is the one that knows us.